who I am in front of a reality that is building itself without any kind of control and without any kind of truth fact approach, if you want to. Let me give you an example. Who I am in front of a picture of Donald Trump, elected president, talking to Zelensky when we know this picture does not exist and was created by a machine, what we call, synthetic media. Who I am as a user when I see something that is not true, but by seeing it at the level of photorealism, it creates what the two philosophers, the French ones, Guattari and Deleuze, have described as the conceptual existence. There are a lot of questions about historical facts, and I'm not going, to give a lot of examples, but is Moses a real historic, person? Is Jesus was really, who he was? And is Muhammad, the prophet, was exactly how he was told to be? It doesn't matter today. I mean, really, 1,000 years after, those events, if they really existed or not. According to Deleuze and Guattari, they existed as concept and thus they exist today. So my individual approach and who I am in front of what I'm looking at is obviously impacted by what I'm seeing and what I'm watching. And the main question I'm asking ourselves today, Michael and myself, is who I am in front of something that I know it's false, but my brain will comprehend it as true. Where is the line between truth and false?
Beni Beeri Issembert, welcome to the Human Zero Day. I'm so excited to get a chance to speak with you over these next 20 or so minutes about, yourself, but also about the world and about the world that we're living in, the world that we're moving into. You've been living at the forefront and the cutting edge of this space of this human experience and user experience in the intersection of AI, machine learning, and identities, if you will, or the new forms of identity. So a lot for us to unpack. Today, you're the head of AI research and ethics at Metaphysic, but you've done a lot of different things before, and so you've been around the block. Beni, tell me a little bit about how you got into this world of synthetic media and, the new ways of thinking through identities.
Thank you for having me today, Michael. I mean, it means a lot. And being able to discuss and we will discuss that a little bit later today, the concept of truth in front of what our eyes or our screen-driven eyes are seeing is something very important for us as human beings to sustain as human beings in the future. So I'm very happy to have the opportunity to discuss that with you. On my side, Einstein, I think, said that, the best way for God to act incognito is to use hazard. So my life is just a kind of accident, if you know what. And a lot of meetings, a lot of stuff that have brought me to the point today that I'm heading, ethics and research for a company that is dealing with a synthetic VFX and an AI-driven VFX, virtual effects. My background is not a tech background. 20 years ago, I wanted to discuss philosophy at the level of a PhD. This time, nobody seemed to care about the concept of ethics in tech. But I wanted to deal with this because I had this very weird relationship and meetings that I wanted to have with Nietzsche on his vision on science and positivism. So this is why, and this is how I came to the world of ethics. After those PhD studies, at this time, leaving from an academic career, especially in Israel, was very complicated, and especially when it came to philosophy. At this time, humanities were not anymore the nice thing to study in the universities. Everybody was looking for something a little bit more tangible, etc., etc. So I went to the world of high tech. I started my career very, very, at the bottom, just to understand how we deal with business and how I could bring a little bit more value by bringing my world, my realm, to a world where a greedy capitalism was really, ruling at the time. I'm speaking about, around 20 years ago. It was just about profit. It was just about creating money, no matter what you used to do, no matter what you will do, and no matter what will be the impact on humanity and on the planet. And I think that 20 years now, after, we can definitely rely on this statement, because I mean, if we look at the decentralized technology, i.e., crypto, Bitcoin, it's killing the planet at a pace that is incredibly high. And I don't think that anybody on our side knows the impact of the new tech on the human brain and the way we interact now from a pure scientific point of view. I think that when you walk the streets, you understand how tech has impacted our life. So just to wrap it up, education as a philosopher of sciences, an experience as a tech guy. I'm coding also, and today I'm in front of you, Michael, with those, I would say, two hats to discuss the future of our tech.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Benny, help me understand a little bit the world of humans and identities in the context of AI from your perspective. How does that look like? How does that work?
So it is the central question of what we are dealing with today. And if you allow me, let's begin maybe by the end, as usual.
Sure.
There is no temporality the way we see it from a pure linear point of view, as you know, Michael. So we'll begin by the end. The end is that a lot of people are thinking or feeling that AI will destroy humanity. And we heard not a long time ago some big people in San Francisco, in the Valley, asking for a moratoire, a stop on the AI research, because they were afraid of what could be the impact of this technology on humanity itself. You are touching a very, very important and very precise point here, the concept of identity, or if you want to, this concept of who I am as an individual in a social contract that is completely different than the one that we used to use or to enjoy from until the AI boom. Technology is a tool. The same way the silex, knife was a tool, techniques, if you want to, in the hands of our ancestors. This technology is not supposed to change completely the way we are from a pure ontologic point of view. But there is something that is very interesting for us to understand and to discuss. It's this concept of who is this I, me, and mine at the age of AI. And we're going to take some distance from the pure, I would say, Freudian or Jungian, if you want to, point of view in terms of identity, who I am in this world. But we're going to take, a very specific point to begin and to start this journey is who this is, this I at the level of AI. Meaning who I am in front of a reality that is building itself without any kind of control and without any kind of truth-fact approach, if you want to. Let me give you an example. Who I am in front of a picture of Donald Trump, elected president, talking to Zelensky when we know this picture does not exist and was created by a machine, what we call, synthetic media. Who I am as a user when I see something that is not true, but by seeing it at the level of photorealism, it creates what the two philosophers, the French ones, Guattari and Deleuze, have described as the conceptual existence. There are a lot of questions about historical facts, and I'm not going, to give a lot of examples, but is Moses a real historic, person? Is Jesus was really, who he was? And is Muhammad, the prophet, was exactly how he was told to be? It doesn't matter today. Really, 1,000 years after, those events, if they really existed or not. According to Deleuze and Guattari, they existed as concept, and thus they exist today. So my individual approach and me, who I am in front of what I'm looking at, is obviously impacted by what I'm seeing and what I'm watching. And the main question I'm asking ourselves today, Michael and you and myself, is who I am in front of something that I know it's false, but my brain will comprehend it as true. Where is the line between truth and false?
Wow.
And
Okay.
I'm not there as an individual.
A lot to unpack, but I'll start with the last statement that you just said, because you raised an important question of saying who I am when I am facing information that I know is false but looks true. So let's talk for a second about the premise of knowing that it's false, because that's not a trivial feat in a world today, right? I mean, there's the technology that it's evolving is making it harder and harder to identify what is real and what is fake, as whether it's in an online setting or whether it's in a real-time communication setting like this. And so let's stop for just a second and talk about the role of technology and solutions to even just help us understand what is real and what is fake, whether we're going to believe it or and who we are at the face of it. That's a question that I want to get to in a second. What's happening today in the context of being able to discern what is real and what is fake?
First of all, this is not a new problem. It's a very old problem. This problem has begun at the beginning. I started at the beginning of our, human history when we began. We started, to paint our stories on walls. Take, the cave of Lascaux in France, with those, horses and cows painted, 3,000 years ago, or even more. I mean, I would say 6,000 years ago. Is it true? Is it false? Is it the reality? We don't know. At the moment that we represent something, physically outside of our own perception of our brain, the question of truth or false is asked. So it's not about who we are in front of this. It's about who we are in front of a representation of a reality that is pursued only by your own brain. I mean, we don't see the same thing, Michael and myself at the moment. We are the same place. We are living the same reality, but we don't see, the same thing, and we are not facing the same experience. I'm going to use again my philosophy background, but there is a very important philosopher of technology. His name is Günther Anders. He was a German, philosopher. 1956, this is, his main work. It's called The Obsolescence of, the Human Being. And everything that he was talking about, he was calling this the ghost effect of radio and television. What are we listening to when we listen to radio? Is it true? Is it the truth, or is it a ghost, meaning a representation of something that is already past? And I think that what you are talking about is this ontological, I would say, relationship that we have in front of something that represents the reality outside of our brain. The main problem today, my dear friend Michael, is that with the technology that we are using today, we can fool the fools. It means that
Right.
the border, or I would say, the boundary between what is true and false is very blurred, and it's more and more difficult today to understand what is true and what is false, what is a fact and what is a synthetic, fact. But, I'm very happy to know that technology comes also with its own vaccine, I would say, if you allow me to speak like that. When you create a virus, you create a vaccine. And I know that a lot of companies in this world are working to create a lot of tools that are going to enable and empower users in their user experience to understand and to get, all the weapons to understand what is true and what is false. But you're right, this technology, AI, and more effectively the generative approach of AI, which doesn't allow the human being to be able to impact how the machines are going to be representing the reality, this is really, really freaking out a lot of people, including me. But, technology, as I said, can be used also to reverse the karma wheel and to bring back the truth the way it must be brought.
So now let's go into the world of the user experience. You mentioned that there's two pieces to it. There's the art of, can we empirically identify what is real or fake, a truth and a lie? And then there's the human aspect, and the human that has to then engage with the content, sometimes experiencing one thing, getting some signals that something is not what it is, and then they have to make a decision. And I think this was probably relevant for both, any online interaction with information, as well as even in a business setting where, we have a rising increase of social engineering and phishing using AI-generated content. And there's some levels of expectation that humans will have the tools to make the right decisions at the right time when confronted with these attacks, if you will. What's your take on the human element that's experiencing this influx of content and information, and how are humans going to deal with it, or how are we dealing with it today?
Again, we are going to get back to the past as usual, and not too
Yeah.
far. In 1984, it's not the year, it's the book. And I think if you want to see how we live our lives today, you need to get back to this book and to understand that we are not in a very good shape as a group and as individuals. There is two things here that you are saying, Michael. The first one is the flow of information that has increased drastically for the last, couple of decades. The quantity of information that we are in front of on a daily basis is insane and does not allow you to stop, to reflect, and to ask yourself and to even think about what you are consuming in terms of news. The second part is obviously all the techniques, all the tactics that some, I would say, non-kosher players are using, to deceive you and to force you to do something you don't want to do. And here I'm speaking from a purely business point of view, but also public point of view. There are governments in this world that are using this technology to fabricate public consent and to make sure that they are controlling their people or the other people. And I think that what we see in Ukraine, Russia, what we saw in Israel, Palestine, what we saw lately also during the US elections are just showing us that it is increasing day after day. This try to control and to fabricate, if you want to, like Noam Chomsky was saying, this public consent. That's the first point. The second point, I would say, on this topic, which is very important, I don't think that we are stupid. And turning humanity into something that does not able to understand what is true and what is false, it's getting back to a kind of world where spirituality and not ethics was reading the world. If you think so, words have meaning, and I love words. We say we believe in God, but we say we believe in truth. Is that the same thing? Is that something that we need to believe in when it comes to truth? Or is that something we need to acknowledge as, I would say, a collective approach to reality? The best way also, again, to illustrate this, and I'm going to get back again to philosophy, it's the cave of Plato. If you think about that, a group of men, they were chained in the cave, they were looking at their own shadows on the wall, and they were believing that it was the truth. Until two of them went out, saw the sun in front of their eyes. It was so hurtful that one of them asked to be brought back to his slave status and to believe again that their own shadows are reality. I think that, Michael, this is really what we are living in today. There are people that are ready to look at the real the way it is, even if this is, hurtful. And there are the ones that want and ask to be deceived because this is easy and this is less painful. But people are not stupid. And if the school, I would say the public school, I'm a big fan of the concept of Republican public school. If the public school is doing its job, meaning to teach our children to think, write, count, and read, we're going to be okay. But I began and started this statement with think. We need to teach our kids to think by themselves and not to equip them only with tools that can be also deceived by their, developers.
It's really interesting because I'm coming into this from a cybersecurity background, and in cybersecurity, you look at the human, and you ask security professionals what's worked, what doesn't work, and they talk about a few main pieces. But there's the firewall piece. Let's create these protective measures. Then there's the other end. There's let's make sure that even if they make a mistake, that mistake gets stopped before some money goes out or some access gets given. And then there's the middle piece, which is in between those two worlds. The human is confronted with a decision where they're faced with a potential attack and they need to decide whether to act on it or not. And at least from a cybersecurity perspective, it seems like the counting on the human and counting on the human's ability to make the right decision reliably, that belief is unfortunately decreasing. And I'm hearing a different optimistic viewpoint from yourself.
Definitely. I'm a big fan of human, and I'm a big believer, if we get back to this concept, of the human touch in technology. And why? Because we cannot be the slaves of what we are creating. And I'm going to use again Gunther Anders and his book, in 1956, The Obsolescence of Human Being. He explained in this book that at the moment that we don't understand how technology is built, we become its slaves. And we create a kind of what he calls a Promethean shame, meaning you are ashamed of the creature that you have created, like Frankenstein and his creator, if you want to. And we become its slaves. But I'm a strong believer, Michael, that humanity as a whole and us as individuals, we have the capacity, we have the reliance, but more than everything else, we have this very specific interbeing relationship with nature. And by nature, I'm not speaking about what is green, but about what is around us, the cosmos, if you want to. We have a very specific relationship that allows us to be optimistic. Why? Because we always have found a way to confront ourselves with our own contradictions and to, if you want to use a Hegelian concept, Aufhebung, to preserve and move forward. So we're going to win this war. The machine will not control our life, will not create synthetic realities without us fighting it with our nails, because reality and the perception of reality is what is turning us into a different animal than the cow, the wolf, or even the insect that is, populating your garden. We understand what is reality, maybe in a wrong way, but we have a very specific interconnected relationship to this concept of reality.
Beni, this was such an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. We're talking, this is December 10th, 2024. Sora came out just a few hours ago.
Indeed.
And so a really timely moment to have this conversation where potentially this day will go down as sort of this new additional one of many inflection points of where hyperrealism and world are colliding and content is created. So wishing all of us best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael.
The most exciting time to be alive, probably, with the least predictableness of where things are heading, but I join your optimism. So thank you so much, Beni.
Thank you very much, Michael. You have a good one.
Thank you.